The road stretched endlessly, a ribbon of sunlight cutting through rolling fields and whispering trees. Clara kept one hand on the steering wheel, the other hanging lazily out the window, feeling the summer air slip through her fingers. She hadn't planned any of this. Not the trip, not the farmhouse she'd rented, not the silence she was now driving into. But sometimes, running away felt like the only way to start over. After 12 years in the city, chasing deadlines and applause that never filled her, Clara finally burned out. Her architecture firm had become her whole identity, until she realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt alive. So she took a leave of absence, packed what fit in her small SUV, and booked 3 months in the middle of nowhere. The wooden sign appeared suddenly. Willow Creek Farm, fresh produce and lodging. She turned down the dirt road, tires crunching on gravel, until the farmhouse came into view. Wide porch, red barn, and endless green stretching out to the horizon. It was peaceful. It was quiet. And, standing on the porch, wiping her hands on a faded linen towel, was Emma. Emma looked up as Clara parked and stepped out. Her hair was sun-streaked chestnut, tied back in a messy braid. Her skin glowed with that kind of warmth only people who worked outdoors could ever have. A loose white shirt hung off one shoulder, jeans worn soft at the knees. "Clara?" she called, smiling easily. "Yeah, you must be Emma." "That's me." She extended a hand, and Clara shook it, noticing the faint calluses, the faint scent of lavender soap and hay. "You're earlier than I expected," Emma said, gesturing toward the porch. "Good. Means you'll catch the sunset. It's the best part of the day around here." "I'll take your word for it," Clara said, smiling faintly. "City sunsets tend to get blocked by office towers." "Well," Emma said, tilting her head, "out here, the only thing blocking your view is the horizon." The farmhouse was cozy, mismatched furniture, the smell of fresh bread, and open windows letting in the hum of crickets. Emma moved through the space like she belonged to it, confident, unhurried. "You'll be staying in the guest cottage out back," Emma said. "It's small but comfortable. Kitchen, porch swing, and if you're lucky, the neighbor's cat might visit. He's kind of adopted us both." Clara laughed softly. "You sound like you've done this before." Emma shrugged. "A few travelers here and there, but you're different. Most people come for a weekend. You booked 3 months." "Guess I needed a longer escape." Emma looked at her for a moment, not intrusively, but like she could see something behind the words. "You'll find what you're looking for here," she said simply. "Most people do." That evening, Clara sat on the porch of her small cottage, watching the sun bleed orange and gold across the sky. In the distance, she could hear Emma laughing with one of the farmhands near the barn. There was something magnetic about that sound, the kind of laughter that came from someone who genuinely loved their life. Maybe that's what I've been missing. Not the noise, not the success, just aliveness. The next morning, she woke to birdsong and the smell of coffee. When she stepped outside, Emma was already there, 2 mugs in hand. "Morning, city girl," she teased. "You survived your first night in the wild." "Barely," Clara said, accepting the mug. "I think a rooster yelled at me at 5 a.m. Emma laughed, the sound soft and low. "That's Henry. He has no respect for personal space." They sat on the porch steps, watching the dew sparkle on the grass. The silence between them felt easy, like they'd known each other longer than a few hours. "So," Emma said, glancing at her, "what's a big city architect doing in a place like this?" "Trying to remember who she is when she's not working." "That's a good reason," Emma said. "Out here, time slows down enough for you to listen to yourself again." "And what about you?" Clara asked. "What keeps you here?" Emma thought for a moment. "My parents built this place. When they passed, I stayed. The farm's part of me now. Some days it's beautiful. Some days it's lonely." but it's home." "Sounds like you love it," Clara said softly. "I do," Emma smiled, eyes catching the morning light. "Even the hard parts." Over the next week, the days fell into rhythm. Clara helped with small chores, watering plants, collecting eggs, sketching the farmhouse while sitting on the grass. Emma was always nearby, humming old songs, teasing her for city habits, offering lemonade on hot afternoons. There was laughter. There was peace. And sometimes, when Clara caught Emma's gaze lingering a little too long, there was something else too, something unnamed. One evening, while walking back from the barn, Emma stopped beside her. The sky was turning violet, the air warm and quiet. "You're starting to fit in here," Emma said. "Yeah? Do I look like a real farm girl yet?" Emma's eyes softened. "You look like someone finding her home again." For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The world felt suspended. Just the sound of wind through tall grass, the distant hum of crickets, and two hearts beginning to recognize something they hadn't felt in a long time. By mid-July, the farm had settled into a rhythm Clara hadn't realized she craved. Every morning started the same, sunrise glowing across the fields, the smell of coffee drifting through the air, and Emma's quiet humming somewhere nearby. Sometimes Clara would sketch the old barn. Other times she'd help Emma harvest vegetables or feed the chickens. But more than anything, she found herself looking forward to the moments between, the small, unexpected silences that felt like they meant something. One humid afternoon, the sky was the color of honey. Emma stood by the fence, a wide-brimmed hat shadowing her face, wiping sweat from her brow. "Can you hand me that basket?" she asked. Clara passed it over, careful not to brush her fingers against Emma's, though lately she wasn't sure why she was trying so hard not to. "You're getting good at this," Emma said, glancing at Clara's sun-dirtied hands. "A week ago, you held a shovel like it was a dangerous weapon." Clara laughed. "Hey, in my defense, it looked like one." Emma smirked. "City people, you think dirt is contagious." "Only when it's wet," Clara said, flicking a bit of soil playfully in her direction. "Oh, that's how it's gonna be?" The next second, a handful of dirt landed squarely on Clara's shoulder. She gasped, pretending to be offended, before scooping her own. Within moments, they were both laughing uncontrollably, tossing clumps of earth like children, their laughter echoing across the field. When the laughter faded, Clara found herself breathless, not just from running, but from the way Emma was looking at her now. There was no teasing in her eyes, just warmth. Something slow and steady, like a sunset that didn't want to end. Emma looked away first, brushing her hands off. "You should wash up before dinner," she said, voice soft. "There's a hose behind the barn. Are you coming?" And for a second, it wasn't about the dirt. Emma's smile returned, faint and knowing. "Go before I change my mind." That evening, they ate outside under string lights. The table was simple: roasted vegetables, bread, and a bottle of local wine. "Do you ever get lonely out here?" Clara asked after a while. Emma thought about it. "Sometimes. The nights can get quiet, but then I remind myself, quiet isn't the same as empty." I nodded. "I think I've forgotten how to be quiet. The city's like a storm that never stops." "You're learning," Emma said, pouring more wine into her glass. "You listen differently now. You look differently, too." Clara blinked. "What do you mean?" Emma smiled faintly. "You used to look like you were waiting for something to happen. Now you look like you're noticing it when it does." Clara laughed softly, feeling her cheeks warm. "That might be your fault." "Oh?" "I think this place, it's making me remember what peace feels like." Emma's eyes softened. "Peace can be dangerous," she said quietly. It makes you want to stay. The next day, rain came without warning, a sudden summer downpour that soaked everything in seconds. Clara ran for the porch, holding her sketchbook over her head, but Emma was already there, laughing, drenched from head to toe. "You call this weather?" Clara shouted over the noise. Emma grinned, pushing her wet hair back. "Out here, we call it nature's reset button." "Reset, huh?" Clara said, stepping closer, rain dripping from her chin. "Feels more like nature's revenge." Emma laughed again, but something about the way Clara was looking at her made the air feel different. The rain softened, the world blurred, just the two of them, standing there, water pooling around their bare feet. "Emma," Clara said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever wish you'd left?" Hesitated. "Sometimes. When I was your age, I dreamed about cities, lights, people. But the older I got, the more I realized peace isn't where you go, it's who you find it with." Clara's breath caught. "That's beautiful." Emma smiled. "It's true." For a long moment, they just stood there, rain easing into a soft drizzle, the smell of wet earth around them. Clara wanted to say something else, something she couldn't name, but Emma spoke first. "You should come to the river tomorrow. It's beautiful after the rain, clear and quiet." Clara nodded. "I'd like that." The next afternoon, they walked together down the dirt trail, sunlight glimmering through the trees. The river was gentle, shallow near the bank, the kind of place that begged you to take your shoes off. Emma sat on a smooth rock, dipping her feet in the water. "When I was a kid, I used to come here whenever I was scared or angry. It felt like the water carried things away." Clara sat beside her. "Maybe it still does." Emma smiled faintly. "Maybe." For a while, they just watched the ripples move across the surface. Soft, steady, endless. Clara turned slightly, studying Emma's profile, the curve of her jaw, the sunlight in her hair, the calm in her expression. Without thinking, Clara whispered, "You look happy here." Emma turned to her. "I am. But lately," her voice trailed off. "Lately what?" "Lately I felt something I haven't in a long time." "What's that?" Emma looked at her, eyes gentle, almost afraid. "Hope." Clara's heart fluttered, and before she could stop herself, she said softly, "Maybe you were just waiting for someone to bring it back." Emma didn't answer. She just smiled, small and quiet, the kind of smile that says, "I hear you, even if I can't say it back yet." That night, as fireflies blinked across the field, Clara lay in bed listening to the sound of the wind through the trees. She realized something had changed, something subtle but undeniable. The farm didn't feel like a temporary escape anymore. It felt like a heartbeat. And she couldn't tell whether it was the place she was falling in love with or the woman who made it feel like home.
The days grew shorter, the air softer. By late August, the farm had begun to turn golden, tall grass brushing the fences, leaves just starting to pale under the sun. It was the kind of beauty that carried a bittersweet weight, like the end of something you weren't ready to let go of. Clara spent her mornings sketching the farmhouse porch, her afternoons helping Emma gather late tomatoes and wildflowers. But lately, everything between them felt charged, too quiet, too full. Every glance, every laugh lingered longer than it should have, and they both knew it. One evening, the sky turned lavender, and Emma called out from the barn, "Clara, can you help me with something?" Clara walked in, brushing dust from her hands. "What's up?" Emma stood near an old wooden ladder, one hand on her hip, smiling faintly. "That light bulb's out again. I need someone taller." Clara chuckled. "I see how it is. You lure me out here for free labor?" "Exactly," Emma smirked. "Farm hospitality." As Clara climbed the ladder, Emma steadied it below. The air smelled faintly of hay and cedar, warm and familiar. "You know," Emma said quietly, "you've brought something new to this place." Clara looked down. "What do you mean?" Emma's gaze met hers, steady, unguarded. Laughter, energy, maybe even me. Clara froze, heartbeat fluttering. "Clara?" Emma took a breath. "I know you're going back soon. I know this summer was never meant to last, but..." Before she could finish, the bulb flickered back to life, filling the barn with a soft, golden glow. Clara climbed down slowly, her heart thudding. "But what?" she asked. Emma hesitated. "But I don't want you to go." The words hung between them, fragile and brave. Clara's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I don't want to either." They stood there in silence, the hum of the light, the creak of wood, the smell of hay around them. Emma took a cautious step forward, then another. Her hand brushed Clara's, a touch so small it could have been an accident, but wasn't. For a moment, neither moved. Then slowly, Emma reached up and rested her hand against Clara's cheek. Her voice trembled when she said, "You make me feel like I'm 20 again, like the world isn't finished with me." Clara's eyes softened. "And you make me feel like I've finally arrived somewhere I belong." Emma smiled faintly, her thumb tracing a line along Clara's jaw. "That's dangerous talk, you know." Clara nodded. "Then maybe it's time to stop being careful." They leaned closer, and for a heartbeat, the world went still. Just the warmth of breath, the pulse of hearts too full to stay silent. Then, as if the moment itself had been waiting all summer, they kissed. It wasn't rushed or perfect. It was honest, soft. The kind of kiss that happens when words fail, when silence finally finds its meaning. When they pulled apart, Emma rested her forehead against Clara's. "You should know. I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of this. Of wanting something I might lose." Clara took her hands, steady and sure. "Then let's not lose it. Not yet." The days that followed were quiet, glowing things. They still worked, laughed, teased each other, but now every touch held more weight. Emma would reach for Clara's hand as they walked through the fields. Clara would brush her hair from her eyes when they sat under the willow tree. It was simple. It was beautiful. And it was doomed by the ticking clock of reality. The morning Clara's return ticket arrived, she sat on the porch, staring at the email. Emma joined her, carrying 2 mugs of coffee, pretending not to see the message glowing on the phone screen. "So," Emma said lightly, "how long until the city calls you back?" 3 days. Emma nodded slowly. "That soon?" "I could stay longer," Clara said softly, unsure if she meant it or just wanted to. Emma looked at her, eyes tender but firm. "Don't stay for me. Stay because you need to." "I do," Clara whispered. "You make me feel like I can breathe. And I make you remember what it's like to dream again." They sat in silence, the weight of unspoken things settling around them. Then Emma reached over, covering Clara's hand with hers. "You'll go," she said, "and maybe someday you'll come back. But either way, us, it'll stay." Clara nodded, blinking away tears. "I hate goodbyes." Emma's voice was gentle. "Then don't say one. Just say, 'See you when the fields bloom again.'" That night, they went to the river one last time. The moonlight shimmered across the water, painting everything in silver and shadow. "I used to think love had to be loud," Clara said quietly. "Big gestures, chaos, passion. But this," Emma smiled, "this is quiet love, the kind that grows roots." Clara looked at her, memorizing every detail. The curve of her smile, the calm in her eyes, the warmth of her hand in hers. "I think my heart found its home," she whispered. Emma's eyes glistened. "Then I'll keep it safe until you find your way back." They stood there until the stars began to fade, until the first light of dawn touched the horizon. When Clara finally turned to go, Emma didn't stop her. She just watched, one hand pressed to her chest, as if holding something invisible, something too precious to name. Weeks later, back in the city, Clara hung one of her sketches above her desk, the farmhouse glowing under a summer sunset. Every morning when she looked at it, she smiled, because she knew that somewhere out there, among the fields and the willow trees, someone was thinking of her too. And sometimes on quiet nights, when the world felt too heavy, Clara would whisper to herself, "Home's not a place. It's a heartbeat, and mine still echoes on the farm.